So two more measures of spread are variance and standard deviation, and there is a long process in order to calculate them, and that's what I want to walk through in this video. These are finding variance and standard deviation is one of the things that you're just going to have to do a couple of times by hand to get the gist of what's going on, and then for the most part you can use technology because it is a complicated process. All right, so in fact, I'm just going to use 4 observations. So let's say whatever the variable is, those are the 4 observations. So step 1 in finding the variance and standard deviation is to figure out what the mean is. And so if you want to pause it and do it on your own, that would be great. But if you add these up and then divide by 4, because there's 4 of them, you get 5. Okay, so the mean is 5. And then what you do is you find for every observation, so for each of the 4 observations, you find the difference between the mean and said observation. So you have 5 and 0, 5 and 3, 5 and 7, 5 and 10. So you find the difference on 4 different times. So the differences, I'll make the difference in red, I guess, would be, now I'll do this in kind of a table form here. Step 2 is the difference between 0 and 5 is negative 5. 3 and 5 would be negative 2, 2, and 5. So that's the difference between 5 and 0, difference between, oops, wrong thing, 3 and 5, 7 and 5, 10 and 5, okay? So for every observation, all 4 things in the data, you find the difference between the mean and that particular number. Then what you do, so that's step 2 here, find the mean. Step 1, just find the differences, that's step 2. Step 3 is to square each of the differences. So I'm just going to do each of those, in this case 4 numbers, 1 for each observation, you square them. Okay? That's step 3. Then you add them up. Boom, boom, boom. Okay? That's step 4. So I'll actually show the work with 25 plus 4 plus okay. So that is step 4. I'm not going to draw an arrow from step 3 because I don't know how to do that. It's just a little exponent, guys. But it's step 3. Step 3 is squaring everything. Step 3 is adding this component there. Alright. Squaring everything. Then you divide by n minus 1, where n is the number of observations. It's actually a little complicated. We'll talk about it later, much later. Why n minus 1 instead of n? Why are you going to divide by 3 instead of 4 here? Well, we'll get into that later in the year. But there are 4 observations. Data has 4 things in it. So n is 4, and that means that you divide by 3. Okay. That is the variance. This number here is called the variance. It's simple for that. It might seem a little bit weird. It's s squared, although it makes sense because you're squaring stuff to get it. Squaring a bunch of things to get it. Okay. And then the actual, like maybe the more important statistic here is what's called standard deviation. This right here is the variance. This is, you're finding 2 different things. The first 4 steps involves is how you find the first one. And then the last step, standard deviation, is the square root. And that is standard deviation. So that is a measure of how spread out the numbers are. That's how you calculate standard deviation. You will only have to do that on your own a couple of times, really. We'll talk about how to figure it out with your calculator. In fact, you kind of already know how to do it. It's just where to look. The last step is square root it. That is the standard deviation. The bigger the standard deviation is, the more spread out the numbers are. So it's kind of like average, typical distance from the mean. So if the mean is 5, and this guy's 5 units away, this guy's 2 units away, 2 units away, 5 units away. Standard deviation is saying that roughly about 4.4 is a typical distance, right? And the bigger that number is, the more spread out the data is. So some quick facts, some facts, I'm just going to put them up here. I'm not going to comment too much. All right, you guys can read it, and then actually this is going to be what you work on in class tomorrow is down at the bottom. All right, so go ahead and read this. These are kind of like important points. Make sure you have those in your back pocket. You know those. Basically, remember what this means. You have one crazy far away point, 1 or 2 far away points. What outliers are that can actually dramatically affect both the standard deviation and the variance.